Hey guys, welcome to the woods. Well, I got a sort of, what would you call it, not a situation. Uh, let's call it a law of the universe that I sort of struggle with, and I'm sure other people do as well. And that is, see if I can throw it out in its ugly form, and then we'll sort of see how it can break down and possibly be true. As you know, I've said before, I'm really much more of a doer type of person, so I kind of feel like, let me look at this problem of, we could look at a bunch of, but let's say like racism. Look at this problem of racism and say, well, it shows up here and it shows up there and it shows up this way and between these two groups. And, and each of those forms which you see racism, you could sort of come up with maybe here's what everybody should be told not to do. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't say this. These people get their feelings hurt by this being done. Don't do this. And you could see how it could play out like fingers on a hand. It could go out and just keep dividing into more and more directions. And you could say, well, let's make some laws against all of it. We've done some of these things and they've been good, but really at its heart, if you have racist people, they're just gonna find other ways, especially in these changing times where, technology and things like that. There's so many ways to exhibit racism that you'll be just chasing the end result of racist thinking forever. So let's back up and play with this law of the universe, which says that what you resist persists. So if you're trying to battle racism, it's going to just keep flaring up and keep flaring up. Try to push down and squelch racism, and don't let it show itself here, and don't let it show itself here, and make some laws about this so this can't happen. Stop this from happening. And when someone says, hey, this is racist and this is terrible and people are suffering, that's where it gets tricky, because it's like, well, yes, that's true, and yes, we should do something about it. But I'm feeling at the same time like I need to just go sit in the woods and accept myself and love myself more as a way to battle racism. And that's a tough one to sell to somebody who's like, there's people on the streets being killed over racism, and opportunities are being taken away from them, and there's so much suffering in the world due to racism, and that's just one of them. You could pick so many other categories. So the doing side seems so much more effective. But getting back to this principle, sometimes when I'm really tuned in, tapped in, turned on in a very prayerful mode, connected to the Christ consciousness, if you will, I feel like the letting go and accepting what is, and really looking at the big picture, kind of pulling away. I always think that when you back up from a situation, it's a lot easier to sort of see the clarity. Then you can go back in and hold that clarity of your higher thinking on the situation. So I'm supposed to accept racism on the planet and say, you know what? I don't need to flare that up. I don't need to go in there and sift and say this is a bad person, this is a good person, this is a bad way to behave, this is a good way to behave. Let's create laws and books and chase down all the people who aren't doing it correctly and put them in this box where they can't get out, and sifting, and you'll do that forever, right? Now you can say, well, over time we've made a lot of laws against racism and it's gotten better. It's gotten better for sure. I don't know that the laws did it. That's where this kind of stuff gets kind of complicated. What caused racism to improve? Now, another vantage point I would have on that point is that the growth of all mankind and the rising of all of our vibration, much caused by, certain like people like Jesus, but there's many enlightened souls on the planet today. The past ones still have an effect. So it's all the growth of all the people and their influence. So they like to say that the more loving I become and accepting, sitting here in the woods, the less racism there is on the planet. And that's a tough one to sell to the guy who's, suffering under the racist act of someone else. And you feel like, I got to go in and rescue this person. And I made this point before, but I have to say this to myself sometimes, that if someone's in need of a situation in front of me, I will act. I will protect someone. I will rescue people. I will. So it's not like you're not going to do in the moment. But I also feel like, what's my big picture view of this? What's my sense of how to be most effective? So let's get back to that point of racism as a whole, backing up from it. What is it really? It's fearful people. No one who's a racist likes themselves, feels comfortable in their own skin, and they all feel like there's a higher source. When they really get honest with you, they probably won't ever talk about this topic, but they feel like there's a higher source that's sort of looking down on them and judges them as not a good person. Racist people will project all the time and swear they are a good person. I'm a good person, you're a bad person, I'm right, you're wrong, all that type of stuff. But we know the bully is never the happy kid. He's not the well-adjusted one, feeling like I've got all the answers, I'm the most intelligent one in the room, and I'm the most supreme being, and I should beat down everyone else. That person is never the true leader of the room. But they often have the biggest voice. You know how bullies are. They can do a lot, and no one wants to touch them or stop them or anything like that. And so you could say this racism is, I'm saying, don't go chase down the bully. And I guess from that perspective, we've dealt with bullies enough to know that if you see a bully, you know, he's pushing around on some kid and being rough on them, the natural reaction is to be rough on that bully. But the reality is that bully needs the love more than the kid who's being bullied. Many times kids who are bullied turn out to be the most compassionate, loving, thoughtful people you'd ever find. Rarely does a bully ever become the thoughtful, loving person. He needs training on love. People who are racist need acceptance, not condemnation, not correction. So the first step would be to allow what's happening to happen, which seems really strange. It's even tough for me to say it to somebody in a general audience like this, but allow what's happening to happen and be accepting of it, and then look with compassion and love on the people who are perpetrating, because the people who are doing the damage, the bullies, if you will, they're, like I've already said, they're the ones that need the love. And as a whole on this planet, if we want to erase racism and bullying, maybe we should be promoting the whole agenda of loving yourself is the most important thing. Take all this energy away from, you know, I remember I had that vision of a hand. So let's say you got this hand of racism, and it comes out in so many different ways, and then that splits into two ways, and that splits into two ways, and there's so many ways to be racist and suppress others and abuse others and take advantage of others and all that type of stuff, which is done by people who don't love themselves and don't feel accepted, and oftentimes feel like there's a grand plan of somebody outside of themselves who's also looking negatively down on them, and they're very self-hating. And we have a society that preaches a little bit of like, you know, the bully needs to be beaten into shape, and the racist needs to be punished, and the drug addict needs to be put in jail, and the thief needs to be beaten, and all these things that anybody does in an outward way that's obviously bad, and anyone could say that's not nice, that's not right, that we shouldn't allow that. True, we shouldn't. But why can't we also be working in the background on the big problem from the helicopter view, if you will? The big problem from the helicopter view is a lack of sense of acceptance of each other. But you aren't going to get acceptance of each other and love of each other and nurturing of each other and taking the time out to spend time with the bully and all that type of stuff. You aren't going to have that type of energy going at these problems if more people who have this feeling of self-love and acceptance don't step up and have this kind of conversation I'm having now, which I'm tripping over my words. I'm not sure I'm even explaining right. But that, it just seems so wrong to be accepting of what's going wrong. But it's the same thing, and I feel like this is an applicable topic because now's the toughest time to choke that down. But who would say, oh, well, the coronavirus is a good thing. But I've talked about these things before. You need to find the good thing. You need to find the goodness in what's coming around, because everything that comes to us is goodness, because we brought it to ourselves. We need to accept that there's not something outside of us. We are life on the planet. If some aspect of life is flaring up and being really aggressive towards us, i.e. this, single-celled organism called the coronavirus, that thing is a flare-up for sure. But the overall problem of so much fear, all that fear that we have already, which is now flared up, is much more harmful to our planet than that little virus is. And I know it seems unsympathetic to the people who are struggling with the disease, who are actually sick at the moment, or those who have had loved ones die and things like that, so I always feel like I have to preface this stuff. But at some point, some of us need to sort of back up to the big picture and say, maybe prayer is all we need. But it's not prayer of, oh, please stop that badness, or take away this problem, or kill off the coronavirus. It's like, no, I want to pray that we all have a spiritual awakening and realize that it's my inner fear that flares this stuff up. My inner unacceptance. If I don't accept myself, I'm not going to accept others. If I don't accept others, then I'm going to want to change others. If I want to change others, then you have exactly the problem I'm saying. Let's run around and fix all these things, kill off this virus, kill off these people who are racist, kill off, these bad policy and these bad things. And yes, we should all be more loving. But where are you going to get the strength to be more loving? Here's another way to look at it. Let's just say we play this out on a day-to-day basis in life, in the courtroom, in the corporate headquarters, in the politicians' offices and things like that. More loving decisions need to be made, less fearful decisions. Well, how are those loving decisions going to be made if a person doesn't have enough inner strength to stand up for the love that they are and say, I'm not standing up against bad, mean people. I'm standing up against the dislike for everything that's going on, the need to feel like you got to go out and fix something. It's not going out and not going to chase down all the people who are doing wrong things. We need to create a little more level of acceptance on our planet. But it starts from within. You got to accept yourself. You got to love yourself. Love this ant that's crawling up my leg. Anyway, there's so much power for you personally when you really accept yourself and know that nothing outside of us can come at us and do us harm. If there's something coming at us which is difficult, it's my own reflection, my own challenge of non-acceptance. Accept yourself. Love yourself. Be good to yourself. And take it easy on yourself. Then you'll have the power, after enough time of that, you'll have the power to step out in the world. Power seems like a wrong word even. You'll have the patience, you'll have the love vibration, I don't know, to make loving, accepting, softer, gentler decisions and not become a cog in the wheel of injustices and wrongness. Lots of people do things that they know I'm just a part of it. What do you want me to do, lose my job? It's what we do. That I know this doesn't seem right, this doesn't feel loving. But if you're the only one in the room who feels it's not loving, doesn't mean you shouldn't be the one to say it. We all need to exhibit a little bit more of our self-love onto others. But you can't do it till you have it for yourself. So I think overall I would just basically say what I've always been saying. Relax. Relax. Go within. Focus on your breath. Give your physical body a break. Stop the racism in your own self. Stop the hatred of who you were, the aspects of yourself, of your past that you don't like. Stop exhibiting fear of your future. There's only the power, there's only the moment of now, and it's always perfect, except you can interpret things happening around you as terrible, fearful, going down the wrong path, reigniting some past thing you think about yourself, going to lead to tragedy in the country, or you know. So I don't think we want to spend any more time focusing on that. We've got 15 minutes and our time's up. So I think we're just going to leave it hang. And just know that if you take the time and you go within, spend time with yourself, loving yourself, stuff will start to make sense to you and you'll know the right thing to do. Power comes when you allow yourself to be who you are. Just allow yourself to be. Let what is be what is. And just keep choosing love in your own little circle of your own head. All right, guys, I'm at diminishing returns. So good luck with that, and we'll talk about it again. I'll see you tomorrow.